This is Tristen Keys. This kid is a 5-star recruit, and not only is he a top 4 player in the class of 2026, but he is also ranked as the #1 wide receiver in the nation. He is an explosive athlete that draws comparisons to guys like T. Higgins and DK Metcalf. And with the way he's been dominating throughout his high school career, he's got a lot of people wondering just how great he can be at the next level. So today I am putting Tristen Keys into College Football 26. Let's see if the #1 receiver in the nation can live up to the hype as we follow him on his road to glory. And now that Tristen is heading into his senior year at Hattiesburg High School, he is absolutely locked in, and he's ready to make some plays and hopefully impress some college scouts. Now in his junior season, Tristen had already claimed the spot as the #1 receiver in the nation, but early on into this season, he continued to prove exactly why. Tristen Keys is already heading to the end zone on his first catch of the season. He was already setting the tone for himself going forward throughout the year, and eventually it would become clear that he was definitely ready for the next level. At this point, he is being offered by pretty much every single school in the country. But by the time that he was heading into the final game of his high school career, he pretty much knew exactly what school he wanted to go to. But that did not mean that he was going to stop cooking up these defenders, as he continued to make plays till the very end of his high school career, officially solidifying his spot as the #1 receiver in the nation. And at this point, man, Tristen Keys had already decided to commit to LSU. But you know what, man, he decided that he was going to go ahead and finalize everything on signing day, and he was going to let people know what his top 3 choices were. It turns out that he is thinking about signing with LSU, Ohio State, and Tennessee. And you know what, in this moment, he actually decided exactly where he wanted to go. He knew that he was going to finally decommit from LSU, but he was going to stay in the SEC and officially sign with the Tennessee Volunteers. And now that Tristen is finally with Tennessee, he's going to have to choose a new jersey number because apparently 5 is not available, so he decides to settle for number 6. Now heading into his freshman season, Tristen is actually the #3 receiver on the depth chart, but he was out here working hard to show the coaches that he might be ready to move up soon. But that's something he'll have to earn throughout the season as he is heading into his first game of the year. The Volunteers are looking to prove that they deserve to be a top 25 team in the nation, so hopefully they can find a way to start the year 1-0 as they are set to face off against Syracuse. Now Tristen was not getting any playing time in this game until the second quarter. He would come in on a 3rd down and 6 though, where his team needed to make a play. So it turns out that it was the perfect time for him to come into the ball game because he comes up with his first catch of his college football career, and it goes for a touchdown. Tristen Keys is already making an impact as he comes up with his team's first score of the season. And his freshman receiver is hoping that it'll be the first of many more going forward throughout his career. Now this kid continued to make some nice plays here, particularly in the second quarter, because they would eventually get to a 1st down and 10 where this slot cornerback blitzed from the wide side of the field, leaving Tristen open for a wide open touchdown. He is coming up with his 2nd touchdown of his career on only 3 receptions. The kid was balling out already, and he was part of the main reason why Tennessee would start 1-0 on the season, as the Volunteers win this one 20-7, and they get it done in a game where their freshman had only 3 receptions, but he still led the team in yards and touchdowns. Now heading into the next week, it looks like Tristen is still going to be wide receiver 3, but the coaches told him that he'll get a little bit more playing time in this one as they're about to face off against the worst team on their schedule, and they want to see what kind of plays he might be able to make against FCS Southeast. Now once again, Tristen was not being brought in until the second quarter in this one, but also again, it only took 1 play for Tristen to score a touchdown. He has got his 3rd score of the season, and he's feeling good as he's setting the tone for his team. The coaches let him stay out there in the 2-minute drill as they were heading into the second half, and he had done a good job helping his team get in position to score 7 points before the 3rd quarter, which is where Tristen would get another opportunity to get back in this game, and it turns out that nobody was guarding him, so Tristen Keys just had a wide open field in front of him and eventually would dive into the end zone for a touchdown. This kid was already showing that he was a certified playmaker. He took advantage of the busting coverage to get his 4th score of the year, and it turns out this play alone was good enough to get Tennessee their 2nd win of the season. The Volunteers closed this one out 24-7, and the coaches were very impressed by Tristen Keys, who went for 80 yards off of 5 receptions and 2 touchdowns. They wanted to make sure that he knew how happy the entire coaching staff was with him, but they were also definitely going to be expecting some big things from him moving forward. The coaches challenged him to get 60 yards and a reception of 30+ yards as Tennessee was heading into their next game of the season. where they would once again be at home, but this time they would be facing off against a top 5 team in the nation. And it was going to be a game that Tennessee really wanted to win if they wanted to establish themselves in the SEC this season. So they were now hoping that they can start the year 3-0 as they were heading into their next matchup against the Georgia Bulldogs. Now the coaches actually decided to have Tristen out here in the first quarter of this one, and he was making some nice plays to help his team get downfield, ultimately allowing Tennessee to score 7 points on their opening drive, and Tristen was getting an opportunity to keep making an impact on the game as they were heading into the back half of the second quarter. This kid just seemed to fit right in with this Tennessee offense as he continued to make plays from the slot. Unfortunately, the coaches would take him out before half, and although Tennessee got some points, soon they would find themselves losing this game before Tristen would come back in the fourth quarter. And at this point, Tennessee has got to get downfield to score a touchdown, but Tristen was making a play that might help them do so. He was taking his ball deep into enemy territory before eventually being brought down at the 8-yard line. And although he would actually get taken out, luckily Tennessee would score a touchdown, not only taking the lead, but eventually getting the ball right back and officially putting an end to this game. Tennessee squeaks this game out against the top 3 team in the nation, 18-15. And it was another game led by their true freshman receiver Tristen Keys, who went for 6 receptions and 96 yards on the day, his highest total of the season. His coaches were starting to get real excited about how great this kid could really be. And rightfully so, he was beginning to get a lot of attention as he was officially signing his first NIL deal. On top of that, man, he was out here taking care of business in the classroom, so everything was going well for Tristen. And he was ready to just help his team keep winning as they were heading into the next game. He felt like if he could keep making an impact, then he might be able to move up to the second string receiver. So he knew he had to stay locked in as he was about to face off against UAB. Now heading into the 4th game of the year, Tristen Keys is becoming a major focal point of this offense. He still was not getting a ton of playing time because he was sitting behind a couple seniors, but whenever he was in the game, this team made sure to get the ball to Tristen. He hadn't gotten into the end zone at all, but he had done his part in helping his team gain a 23-0 lead. And by the time he had come up with his 5th and final reception of the day, he had done enough to help Tennessee put this game away. The Volunteers beat the brakes off of UAB 30-0, just absolutely frying them with the help of Tristen Keys, who went for 5 receptions and 79 yards. This kid was already becoming a fan favorite, but even still, he would remain as the wide receiver 3, which at this point he definitely understood considering that he was still a freshman, but he knew the more he balled out, the harder it would be for the coaches to keep him off the field. So heading into this one, he was going to try to have his best game of the season, as Tennessee was now going on the road to face off against Mississippi State. Now in the first quarter of this game, Tristen Keys was locked in as Mississippi State left him open, so we knew he had to come out here and say, hey, snatching this dude's ankles, and Tristen Keys was heading to the end zone for another touchdown on the season. Tristen Keys was making a big time play already against another 4-0 SEC team. Crazy enough though, the coaches not only decided to take him out, but they wouldn't even put him back in until the 4th quarter, where he didn't even have a chance to make a play at all before they took him out again, and eventually this game would head into overtime, where luckily at this point Tennessee is only down 3 points, and Tristen knows that all they have to do is just get in the end zone. So that's why on this play he decided to snag this ball over the middle, and Tristen Keys had room to get himself across the goal line for a touchdown. The freshman comes up with his 2nd score of the day, making a huge catch that would officially move his team to 5-0 on the season. The Volunteers escaped this game 19-16, and even on just his 3 receptions, man, Tristen still made some of the biggest plays of the game. Deep in his heart, this kid knew that he was the main reason why his team was winning some games, and rightfully so, he was getting a lot of love throughout the state of Tennessee. Tristen Keys was beginning to establish himself as one of the top players on the team, all while technically not even being the top player at his position. He knew he could be a big problem for opposing defenses, and his teammates definitely felt like he could be, especially now heading into their next game against 5-0 Arkansas. Now, it did not take long into this game for Tristen to start making an impact, as he came up with the catch to get his team across the 50 and helped them put up 3 points on their opening drive. In the second quarter though, this offense began to stall out pretty heavily as they were not able to put up any more points throughout this first half. Tristen would eventually come back in later on in the second half, where he was doing a great job coming up with the catch to move the sticks for his team. But unfortunately, that's where the coaches decided to take him out, and although he would not come back in until the rest of the game, Tennessee would still find a way to come up with the victory. They moved to 6-0 on the season, and it's wild that it took this long, but eventually Tristen would finally get the chance to move up to wide receiver 2. And I'll tell y'all right now, this was definitely not an opportunity that he was looking to pass up. He stayed locked in all throughout practice and eventually took over that number 2 spot. He was definitely hyped to be moving up the depth chart, but this didn't mean that he was going to stop working right there. He truly felt like he could become one of the best receivers in the nation. And it turns out that the next game of the season was going to be a great opportunity for him to show what he can do, as Tennessee was now heading on the road to face off against another top 25 team in the nation, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, it did not take long into this one for things to go completely wrong for Tennessee, as they fumble on their opening drive, allowing Alabama to take a 10-point lead. But it turns out it would not stop there, as Tennessee was picked off on their next drive. By the third quarter, the Volunteers were already down 17-0, and Tristen Keys was only coming up with his third reception of the day, but this one was going for a good chunk of yardage to help his team gain some momentum. Unfortunately though, not only was Tennessee not able to put up points on this drive, but soon they would find themselves down 24-0. They definitely still had some life in them though, with Tristen Keys coming up with a catch for a touchdown, helping them potentially get back in this game, and it looks like they really might have a chance to after the tight end comes up with the touchdown later on. This is now only a 2-possession game, but soon Alabama would push it back to 3, and even though Tristen found himself wide open on this play for another touchdown, getting himself over 100 yards on the day for the first time in his career, it was just not enough, as Tennessee goes on to lose their first game of the season, dropping this one against the rival in Alabama. But Tristen was definitely proud of a game where he went for 13 receptions and 137 yards. He tried his best to make some plays to keep his team in this one, but unfortunately it just was not enough. Regardless, he was still getting a lot of attention, as he was now signing his second NIL deal, but he knew now heading into the next week with Tennessee going back on the road, he had to lock in if he wanted to help them get back on track. So he was going to do what he could to help his team get another win, as they were set to face off against Kentucky. Now, early on in this game, Tristen Keys was already making plays, as he not only came up with the catch, but he would jump over some guy for a first down. Tristen Keys was becoming a real problem for opposing defenses. Turns out though that on this opening drive, he was not big enough of a problem to get his team in the end zone, bringing us to the second quarter where this game is still tied at 0, but Tristen was out here making some plays to try and change that. He came out here on a 3rd down and 9 before he found the open zone in the defense and came up with the catch to bring his team within the 5-yard line. Unfortunately though, at this point the coaches decided that Tristen should come out the game, and they actually did not put him back in at all throughout the rest of the night. Now luckily Tennessee did find a way to come up with the win, but that is kind of crazy. Tristen had 10 receptions for 100 yards in the first half, and somehow Tennessee won by only rushing the ball apparently. The crazy thing is that the coaches were actually out here talking about how Tristen should be the wide receiver 1, but yet they took him out for the entire second half. Yeah, I don't really know what's going on here. Regardless though, Tristen was just going to lock back in for his next game. He was looking forward to helping his team in their next matchup against the #1 team in the nation, as Tennessee was now going to step into a battle for the top spot in the SEC against the Oklahoma Sooners. Now Tristen had come out here and got 1 reception for 4 yards on this opening drive, but Tennessee was still able to get downfield into scoring territory, where on this 1st and 10 a pass to Tristen Keys would fall incomplete, and out of nowhere, man, the coaches are once again deciding to take Tristen Keys out. The coaches do not put him back in at all throughout the rest of the game, and I'm not really sure why, but I am sure that Tennessee would lose their second game of the season. The Volunteers dropped this one against the #1 team in the country, and for whatever reason, Tristen Keys just didn't even get a chance to make an impact. The coaches reassured him that they trust him, and on top of that, Tristen was still doing great in the classroom, so he really didn't understand what was going on, as Tennessee was sitting at 7-2, heading into the final 3 games of the season. But at this point, after a loss in the previous week, Tristen is definitely focused on trying to help his team get back on track, and he was hoping that he would not get taken out early again, as Tennessee was heading into their next game at home against New Mexico State. Now in the first quarter, Tristen was coming up with a reception for 5 yards, but then immediately he was being taken out. This is literally the 3rd game in a row where Tristen gets subbed out the game, and he does not get to go back in at all throughout the rest of it. Now something is definitely going on, man. Tristen does not know what it is, but it does not make any sense that the coaches seem to be so happy with him, yet he's not really getting any playing time. This situation had people talking all around the nation, as many people wondered why Tristen Keys was not playing more. I mean, at this point in the season, this kid was far and away the best wide receiver in the team, and this is all while not getting nearly as many opportunities as the other players. Regardless, at this point, man, Tristen knows that he just has to control what he can control, because he had to lock back in with Tennessee heading into another big game. They were heading on the road again to face off against another top 25 team in the nation, and they're hoping that they'll be able to keep their season alive, as they're about to face off against the Florida Gators. Now early on in this game, and for the first time in a few weeks, Tristen Keys was coming up with a big play, He got his team all the way down to the 10-yard line on his opening drive, bringing us to the very next play where the wide receiver 1 is able to get open and get in the end zone for a touchdown. Tennessee comes up with a big play to move them up 7-0 early on, and soon they were actually creating a turnover and getting the ball back here in the first quarter, bringing us to a 2nd and 5 where Tristen would move the chains for his team once again. Unfortunately though, the coaches are once again taking him out. Tristen Keys is coming out the game in the first quarter, and although he does not come back in, Tennessee does find a way to get the win, closing this one out 24-21 in another game where Tristen he didn't even make it out the first quarter. And regardless of the fact that Tennessee was winning, Tristen was still frustrated, and he still had no idea why the coaches were taking him out so much until he checked the settings, and then he realized that the coaches probably thought that he was injured or something. But after Tristen Keys had actually talked to the coach and let him know that he is all good, it turns out that they figured it was time to move him up to wide receiver 1. All that we're going to need is for him to just keep working hard throughout this week of practice, and after he did, he would officially become the number 1 option for this team. Tristen Keys had finally worked his way up this depth chart, and he was ready to establish himself as one of the best players in the nation. But first and foremost, he was looking to help his team come up with a win, as they were heading into the final game of the regular season against Vanderbilt. Now in the first quarter of this game, Tristen Keys was out here working from the slot before frying his defender, and he got himself enough space to not only come up with the catch, but he was taking it upfield for a touchdown. Tristen Keys was back in the end zone for the first time in a few weeks, making a play that really set the tone for his team as they went up 7-0, but it turns out that would only be the beginning for Tristen as he continued to move the chains for his team here on the next drive. In the first half alone in this one, Tristen was torching his defense, coming up with plays that would ultimately put him at 100 yards before the beginning of the third quarter. And with Tristen not being subbed out of this game already, he had an opportunity to establish his dominance. This kid looked like he might be a real issue for this Commodore defense. And it turns out that they would find out the hard way after he snagged this ball out the air in the end zone. Tristen Keys absolutely mosses this defender for his 2nd touchdown of the day. This dude was a dog, and it's crazy to think that he still wasn't even done there. Because by the fourth quarter, with Tennessee now up 17-3, they get to a 3rd down where they need to make a play, so Tristen comes up with a catch, and he is evading this defender to get himself to the end zone for his 3rd score of the day. I'm pretty sure this is actually his first 3-score game of his career, while he also makes a play to put him well over 200 yards on the day. This kid was the truth, and today it was because of him that this team moved on to 10-2 on the season. The Volunteers close out this game in dominant fashion thanks to a record-breaking performance from Tristen Keys, as he now holds a single-game record for receptions at Tennessee, ultimately earning himself not only an SEC but a National Offensive Player of the Week for his performance. He absolutely balled out to close out the regular season, and ultimately it looked like he helped his team get a spot in the college football playoffs. But before they would head into that, Tennessee had to take care of business as they punched their ticket to the conference championship. They had a chance to potentially win an SEC title, but in order to do so, they would have to beat a team that they had lost to earlier in the season, as Tennessee was now set to face off against the Oklahoma Sooners. Now, it did not take long into this game for Tristen Keys to come up with a catch, and out of nowhere, he had the entire field in front of him as he got to the end zone for a touchdown. Tristen Keys was putting up a score on his first catch of the day, and this kid had to pinch himself because he had to make sure that he was not dreaming. He couldn't believe that he was doing this against the top 4 team in the nation. But to be fair, it is very early in this game, and soon Tristen would realize that Oklahoma was going to be tough to play against, as the Sooners come up with a pick to put them up 9-7, and I don't know where the momentum shifted all the way to the Sooners' side. Tristen knew that he was going to have to do something about that though. So after this defense had a complete bust in coverage, Tristen would find himself wide open over the top, and it looks like he has taken this one the distance for his 2nd touchdown of the day. Tristen Keys was already having a huge impact on this game, helping his team take the lead here in the first half before Oklahoma would take it back in the second. And now down 1, Tristen knew that he had to get his team back into scoring range, so he decided to say, hey, snatching this dude's ankles and bringing his ball all the way to the 20-yard line. Eventually, Tennessee would actually push it to a 2nd and goal where they had a chance to score a touchdown, but instead the quarterback throws a pick, which turns out to be a major turnover that not only takes points off the board, but takes time off the clock, because now there is less than 2 minutes left when Tennessee gets the ball back, and they have to find a way to make a play. They would get to a 3rd down and 3 where Tristen recognized that there was a lot of open space over the middle, so he would run straight to the hashes, and he was wide open across the middle for a touchdown. Tristen Keys was getting back in the end zone to take the lead in the final moments of this game, but it turns out that one of the linemen were actually called for a holding. So Tennessee actually has to back this one up to 3rd down and 13, where on this play they were not able to convert. They are able to get a field goal to take the lead though with less than a minute left, but Oklahoma is driving down the field and eventually gets a field goal of their own, taking the lead in this one with just not enough time left. And unfortunately, Tennessee would go on to lose their 3rd game of the season. The Volunteers would drop this one by 1 point in the SEC Championship. A heartbreaking, soul-crushing loss that was honestly an incredible performance from Tristen Keys. The kid had 11 receptions, 236 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Yet somehow, someway, it still was not enough despite the record-breaking performance. Regardless of the loss though, Tristen was still going on to earn himself a National Offensive Player of the Week. He had really established himself as a dominant weapon on offense, and he would go on to get recognized for it at the end of the season, as Tristen Keys goes on to earn himself a first-team All-SEC. He put up 79 receptions and over 1,100 yards on the season, plus 13 touchdowns, all while being on a limited snap count. This kid was a dog who already as a freshman had easily become one of the top receivers in the nation. He was actually only a few yards behind some guy named Kevin Conception. Yeah, that's a crazy name. Either way though, man, Tristen was now ready for the college football playoffs. He had a long season, but he knew that this was only the beginning of where he felt like this team could really potentially be. He knew that they might be good enough to get to the national championship. But in order to do that, they were going to have to find a way to get past this first round, which was definitely not going to be easy, as they were now heading on the road to face off against the 8th ranked team in the country in Virginia Tech. Now this would be another game where it did not take long for Tristen to come up with a catch, and he was just outracing his defender down the sideline into the end zone for a score. Tristen Keys was already making a play to put his team ahead in this game, as he got the Volunteers up 7-0 in the first quarter. And after they are not able to convert on this 3rd down, they are still able to put up 3, quickly moving their lead to 10 heading into the second quarter, where at this point it seems like Virginia Tech still does not know how to guard Tristen, as they let this man just get wide open over the middle, and he almost took this one the distance for another touchdown before getting dropped inside the 20-yard line. Tristen Keys already had well over 100 yards on the day, and after this defender lets him go right past him, he comes up with his 2nd touchdown of the day. Virginia Tech is out here playing some horrifically atrocious defense in this first half, bringing us to the 3rd quarter where although their offense seemed like they were stepping up, their defense had still not changed much, as Tristen Keys was coming up with a big play over the top. He damn near almost had his team back in the scoring range, but after a penalty on the offensive line, they got to a 3rd down and 20 where they were not able to convert. And all of a sudden, Virginia Tech is looking like they have a chance to come back in this game. It was unfortunate for them though that they did not have a guy like Tristen Keys who continued to burn them over the top, as Tristen was now over 250 yards receiving. He just continued to help his team move downfield on this drive in the 4th quarter, eventually bringing us to a 3rd down and goal where it looks like they were definitely going to put up some points. But some miscommunication leads to a pick, and now Virginia Tech not only got the turnover, but they were able to take this one all the way down the field and come up with a touchdown to give them the lead with less than 30 seconds in this game. This is obviously not a good position for Tennessee to be in, but they were making it even worse for themselves by not passing the ball to Tristen, and instead the quarterback puts it into the field of play, forcing them to call a timeout. Tennessee was definitely in big trouble at this point, but a catch from Tristen looked like it could give him a chance. But after Tennessee thought that the clock would stop, it turns out they were wrong, because I don't know where this clock hit zeros, and just like that, it was officially the end of Tristen Keys' freshman season. Tennessee ends up falling to Virginia Tech 21-17, going out sad in the first round of the playoffs despite the fact that Tristen Keys had a phenomenal game. The kid had 15 receptions, 312 yards, and 2 touchdowns. A game that ended up being another record-breaking performance in multiple ways. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough to help his team get to the national championship, in which Ole Miss would end up winning. Now, by the end of the season, Tristen Keys had gone for almost 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. And although he had solidified himself as one of the top weapons in all of college football, he was not sure if there were enough weapons on this team to be successful moving forward. He was honestly disappointed with the way that he had been benched throughout the season, and he did not like the way that they lost in the final game of the year. So at this point, Tristen is heavily considering entering the transfer portal, where he had the option to go to a ton of schools throughout the country and potentially go somewhere that could help him grow into the top wide receiver in the nation. So heading into the offseason, Tristen definitely had some decisions to make, but I'll leave that decision up to you guys. If you want to see a part 2 of Tristen Keys, be sure to get this video to 1,000 likes and subscribe to the channel down below. Also be sure to comment down below who else you guys want to see next, and YouTube thinks you'll like one of these other stories until the next one comes out. If you got to this point in the video, just know that I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and by the way, I will be doing a giveaway soon on Twitter for either a jersey or a video game, whatever you guys want, we'll see. But be sure to follow me on Twitter for more updates, because I am going to start giving back to this community. I know that I mention it pretty much every video, but I truly mean it when I say that I appreciate y'all more than you'll ever know. So I really hope y'all have a great rest of your week, and other than that, I'm gonna catch you guys next time.